Hey, caregiver family. Welcome back to another episode of the My Favorite Girl Caregivers Corner podcast. I am so grateful that you've chosen to listen to this episode of the podcast. If you've listened to it before, I'd like to welcome you back for another care empowering, inspiring, and strengthening episode. That's what I like to say because that's what we're here to do. We're here to inspire you as caregivers. If this is your first time listening, I want to say welcome and thank you too for listening. Hey, listen, I say this every time. If you haven't done so already, take a moment now to subscribe to the podcast from whichever platform you are listening on. You can listen on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, YouTube, and of course on the website. So wherever you are, go ahead, take a moment now and subscribe to the podcast. And then also go ahead and share it with a family member or friend, especially those you know who are caregivers. And as always, I'd like to take a moment to thank those who are also following me on social media, on my Facebook page, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, all of it. You can find us out there. If you are on Facebook, you can find us at My Favorite Girl and Alzheimer's. On Instagram, My Favorite Girl and Alzheimer's. And then, of course, on YouTube, it is My Favorite Girl Caregivers Corner podcast. And then, yes, we are on TikTok at My Favorite Girl and Alls. And on these platforms, you're going to find posts that will motivate you, educate you, and inspire you. Those of you that are caring for your loved ones. My mom and I, I take some time. Sometimes what I've started doing is my conversations with my favorite girl. And that's just at this particular point, she's not able to really have full conversations, but she has enough that we can still have a good conversation. And what I find is that there's so many people that just wait to even hear those conversations. And so you'll find that out there, as well as just different posts that we make to just help inspire. And one of the things that I do also do is I share some of those real moments. Some of those moments that are not so funny. I started this whole platform with my what I coined to be mama moments because there were just some things that my mom would say and do that were just hilariously funny. And so I started it with the mama moments, and there would just be just these funny sayings that she would have or something funny that she would do that I would post. But then I also started posting what I also coined to be the not so funny moments, because on this journey, especially those that are caring for loved ones with Alzheimer's or any other form of dementia, there are moments that are just not so funny. They're the real moments. They're the things that happen that it's just real life. It's just how it is. There are some instances where they may be combative or some other things, and that's just the real parts of it. And I didn't want people to think that it's all laughter and fun, because it's not. And so I want you to be able to see the full cycle, the full circle rather, of what it looks like. And so you'll find all that information out there on the website, as well as, on social media and the website, as well as different events, different resources. There's resources out there for those that are carrying things that can help you to just do better, be better at caring and what have you. So check out all of that on those platforms, and subscribe, share them. If you're not one who is caring for someone, feel free, share it with a friend who may be. They can use it, I guarantee you. All right. So thank you again for tuning in. And on this episode, I'm excited again to have a special guest with me who is here. She's been on the podcast before, and I'm just excited today to have her back on for another conversation. And that is none other than Vicki Nolan Fitch. I'm going to give just a little bit of background, a little bit of her bio, and then we're going to head over into the conversation. So Vicki Nolan Fitch is a social worker and certified dementia practitioner with 30 years of experience helping people with dementia and their families navigate this catastrophic disease and manage dementia with grace. She is the creator of the Dementia with Grace behavior management system and author of the amazing, it is amazing, of the Amazon best-selling book, Dementia with Grace, a new positive way of dealing with behaviors in people with dementia, second edition, and the story of a life, a tool together, the life history of a person with dementia. She helps families dealing with difficult dementia behaviors by teaching common sense strategies to manage wandering, agitation, paranoia, and false accusations and other troubling behaviors. She also consults with dementia caregivers on self care for the heart journey that is dementia caregiving, specifically on issues of overwhelm, burnout, guilt, and grief. Her book is sold on Amazon. And I'm just going to tell you real quickly how we met. We met because I found her book on Amazon. Found her book on Amazon, and I tell you, if you don't have it, please, you can actually go to my website at www.priscillajjeanlouis.com, PRISCILLAJJEAN-LOUIS.com. And if you go to resources, you will see books out there, and you can just click on the book. It'll take you over to Amazon for whichever one, the first one or the second edition. But I guarantee you, if you are a care partner, caregiver who is caring for someone with Alzheimer's or any other form of dementia, um, that is book that you definitely need in your library. I read it record time. What I would do is anytime my mom would start to, exhibit behaviors that I wasn't familiar with, I would go and research and look for other resources that could help me to understand where she was at that moment. And I ran across Vicky's book, purchased it, on Amazon, and I think I read it in just a few days. But it helped me
Hmm.
understand exactly where she was at that moment. And she also has a Facebook group that I am a part of. And those of you that are on YouTube, you can see it. It is scrolling there, but it is called Dementia with Grace Caregiver Support Group on Facebook. I recommend that group to just about everybody I come in contact with who I'm sharing any type of information about Alzheimer's and dementia. That group now has, what is it, Vicky, close to about 9,000 people.
Yeah, it's we're getting closer to 10K, so it's amazing the growth that has happened inside that group. It's
Yep.
amazing.
Yep. So if you are a caregiver, care partner, that is a group I highly recommend. Um, there's information. It's a private group. You don't have to worry about your conversations being shared out there. They've set it up now where you can even make anonymous posts if you don't want your
Hmm.
name shared, so that people may, you may have family or friends that you may not want them to know that you're sharing certain things. And there's people there. I can tell you there are thousands of people in this group who will literally pray with you. And I love that. I
Yes.
love that about
Yes.
this group because it's like one big family. And I'm going to push a pause on me for a minute and just come back and say, Vicki, welcome. Thank you so
Thank
much
you.
for
Thank you.
coming on again.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I love that. In fact, on the bio on the back of my book says that I will talk to any group at any time. Just let me know. And it's the truth. I love dementia caregivers, and of course the person with dementia, but their caregivers have um, such a hold on me. And I just thank you for giving me the platform to reach even more caregivers. So thank you, Priscilla. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. And she does, y'all. She talks to, she's just as, what you see is what you get. What you hear is very real, very authentic. And that's the one thing that I love. And amazing enough to me, I never met Vicky ever, and took a chance and reached out because of an event that my daughter, through her organization, we were having. And I reached out because, and I shared with her a little bit earlier before we started recording, I have not found yet another person that has been as authentic and, just loving and all of that shares so much information for caregivers. And I mean, just her happiness, her joy, it's just attracting. And so, I reached out and took a chance and said, hey, this is who I want. Let's see if we can get her to come and be a special guest. And without hesitation, she, agreed to come and was our guest on that particular. We did a youth caregiver awareness
Mm-hmm.
drive, and she was our special guest. And we just have developed a friendship that has been great. And so we're back here today, and we're talking about a topic today that is, something that she and I both have been dealing with. And she made a post. It's been a few months ago, made a post on Facebook, and we'll get into this. But our topic for today that we're going to talk about. This is my fifth season with the podcast, and the thing about this podcast, I am a caregiver. I'm a full time caregiver. Been caring for my mom for now going on 10 years. It's amazing how fast time passes, but it's been
Mm-hmm.
almost 10 years. And so, sometimes I can record, sometimes I can't. And so that's just kind of how the podcast goes. And so we did episode one and dealt with a topic that we're going to continue today, and that is grief. We're going to talk about grief, but our conversation today is going to be on the topic of happy, hurting, and healing. And that topic, Vicky recently lost her husband. Her husband recently passed away back in July.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's only been about 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
And for those of you that have been listening to the podcast on the last one, my best friend passed away. It's been a year and 5 months. And so, just in dealing with that and wanting to just finally talk about what that grief looks like, Vicky made a post a few months ago. Wasn't too long, a couple months after her husband passed away. And the post simply said, "You're allowed to be happy, hurting, and healing all at once. You're a human, not a rock." And that resonated so
Yes.
much with me.
Mm-hmm.
One, to have her to have just experienced such a great loss, and then to come back, and even with that, I mean, literally just a few days after the loss, she was in the Facebook group, still encouraging, still pushing people, still, encouraging the caregivers to go on. And it just, I mean, that is what that dementia with grace is all about. That's that part
Mm-hmm.
of it, that grace part, that sometimes we don't always embrace, And so, Vicky, I want to jump right into this conversation, even when it comes to that particular quote, even when you
Mm-hmm.
posted that. Tell me, tell our audience, what were you thinking about at that particular time? Why? I mean, how can I be happy, hurting, and healing?
I think that it's very common for folks, going through whatever they're going through, to feel that, they can't, well, this is such a serious situation. I can't laugh, or I can't. Why am I happy? There's nothing happy about losing a husband, or losing your parent, or losing your child, or your brother, sister. A lot of that happens, of course, in dementia, and it's like, that would just be in bad taste if I laughed, or that would be just, oh, people would think I had no heart, or that I wasn't missing my person. um I know when at Phil's funeral, um we had a packed auditorium, packed chapel. And when I first, you know the doors were opened, and here I go down the middle of all of those people, I just heaved crying, just heaved crying. I mean, I had to get myself under control. I'm like, okay, you know, don't make a scene, you're okay, that kind of thing in my brain, because I'm like, I don't want to be Um, I don't. I wanted. I'm still stuck with that. I want to be what people expect me to be. That's just. I'm a Southern girl. Like if you can tell from my voice, I'm an Alabama lady, and there's a lot of I'm on a stage, and that's what it felt like. And then after the funeral, we had 400 people in line. It took us 3 hours to get through the line. And at first, I was tearful. Then somebody would tell me a funny story, and of course, I would laugh. And then the next person, I might break down again. It was just so, but there's nothing wrong. There's nothing incongruent with having emotions. An emotion is energy in motion. That's the
I like that.
impetus of not the impetus, but the anyway, what the word means. Um, it is energy in motion. And so whether it's whether it's laughter or tears, sadness or happiness, it's all an emotion. And I think it's important for us to all realize that you can be, you can be deep in the depths of your caregiving and have a lot of wind beneath your wings, and you can say, I've got this, I can do it. I didn't think I was going to be able to do it, but I can do it, and I'm so proud of myself. And in 2 hours, be like, oh, what,
Listen,
what was I thinking? This is not easy. This is not fun. This is not whatever. So, I think it's that way with everything in life, Priscilla, is that, you know, um, we are expected to be, we think grief looks like this. We think caregiving looks like this. And until you're in it, you don't know what it looks like. You know what it looks like from the outside, which is useful and helpful. Friends that maybe have not been through it, they can be helpful. But the people like the geniuses in our group, I refer to them as geniuses all the time because it's the truth. They are on the front lines of dementia caregiving, and you can talk about anything with those folks. It's mostly ladies, but we've got some men. I say that we've got hens and a few roosters. So, we can be transparent, and we can have a good day one, and the very next day, say I have to come back and report that I thought we were going to have a good night, but we ended up not having a good night, and everybody's just like, "Phew, we know
yep,
how that feels.
yep.
We've been there. And so um, I leaned on the group when I lost Phil. It was very, very sudden. We knew that Phil was sick in a lot of little ways, but we had no idea that it was end stage liver disease. Phil had Crohn's. Oh, it still gives me a chill bump. I'll be honest when I speak about him in the present tense. That was an honest reaction right
Yeah,
there.
yeah.
He had Crohn's, and he had received an infusion of Remicade every 8 weeks for 30 years.
Oh wow.
And I guess at some point, folks had talked to him and talked to me about, the side effects and how it could affect your liver, your kidneys, but it was treating the disease at hand. So, it was. I think if even we had been told, and we talked about this after the diagnosis, even if we had been told, I don't know that he would have made a different decision because he did have 30 years of um, remission. Basically, he had one episode where he ended up back in the hospital while we were married, and so what do you do? Six of one, half dozen of the other, So, but so it happened fast. He had a major change in his cognition on a Saturday morning. He went to the hospital. They admitted him that Saturday night. They said what they thought it was, given his history, all this. It was end stage liver. I said, I'm a brain lady. I'm a brain lady. So can we just do an MRI just to rule out a stroke, rule out anything else that it could be, before we just say this is it? And of course
Right.
they did. He had lost the use of his hands, his fingers, his hands, his legs. He just, I mean, it was just overnight. He was um, he was incapacitated. But his mind was clear and sharp after they got some of the medicine on board. But they told us, that we would be going home on hospice. It was an end stage life situation. And, we talked, and um, he asked me, could he die at home? And I said, well, yes, you can. It's your home, it's our home, and I'm okay. I'll be okay with that. And he said, well, this is some of the humor now that you can hear from me too, but my husband was like this too. He said, okay, but okay, if I die at home, I don't know how it works, but I will try not to be a ghost. And I said, Phil, the only ghost in our house is the Holy Ghost.
Hey,
So
come on.
I don't know how you'll figure it out either, but just tell them you can't sign up for that mission, that you you can't be a ghost in our house. And then I said, well, if you are a ghost, baby, just don't get in the closets and like jump out at me,
Right. Knock stuff
and
over.
you know, he was. Like I have told you before, Priscilla, that my daddy said that I had a belly full of joy. And if there was another person on this earth that also had a belly full of joy, it was Phil Fitch. He brought sunshine and laughter at his job. Everywhere he went, we live in a very small town, and everybody knows us. Everybody knows Phil. And, throughout this whole time of losing Phil, they've told me, we miss Phil. We miss Phil. He just was such a light. He was such a, he could just always make us laugh. And sometimes it was even unintentional. He just had such a joy about him that radiated. And he came home. We were sent home on hospice. He came home on that following Tuesday. So from diagnosis to death was 12 days.
Oh, wow.
And he was at home for 8 of those days, and he was pretty much with it for 4 or 5 of those days. And so we got a lot of people through the house. We had a lot of people that wanted to come see him as soon as he got home. I'm smiling because there's another just funny joke. Let me just say, we live in a very, very small town, like 900 people in our whole
Oh,
town.
my. Okay.
Oh yeah, yeah. And listen, 400 were at his funeral.
At the
So if that
funeral.
tells you anything, and it was the weekend of the 4th of July. He died on July the 2nd. His funeral was on the 6th, I think it was. But anyway, he came home, and he had to come by hospice because he was not able to walk again. He couldn't do anything, so he had to come home by ambulance. So I was waiting. I had come home to get the house situated and everything. His sister waited with him over there. So here comes April driving up, and I'm like, well, Phil must be coming just any time. And then I heard sirens, and I thought, well, something else is going on. No, it was Phil. He told them, he said, when we get close to town, can y'all run the lights and sirens? And they were
Oh,
like, why?
no.
And he said, this is probably going to be my last time to come into Carrollton, and I want it to be lights and sirens.
Oh.
Whew.
Mm.
So he got home with the lights and sirens, and they opened the bays to the back door, and I was standing there with my hands on my hips, and I'm like, what was that? And he said,
And you automatically
they
knew
said,
it had. Yeah.
I could. I said, well, why didn't you drive around the courthouse and just let everybody see it? And I said, now Phil, the gossip is probably going to be, that Phil's got 24 hours to live, and now they're going to say, well, they must have brought him home and took Vicky to the hospital. I mean, but I mean, that is just quintessentially Phil.
Yeah.
And people that I told the story to, later on, they were like, oh yeah, we absolutely see Phil doing that. So um, there is sorrow, and of course, you saw a authentic moment of it there. But there's so much joy, and you know, we I know he was a Christian,
Yeah.
so I know, from that bed into God's hands, or surrounded by His angels, there went he. And um, we had time to talk about. We didn't talk about anything the day they told us that it was the end. But that I was at the hospital with him. I slept with him. I couldn't sleep with him, but I slept beside him. And
Right.
the next morning, he broached the subject and said, um, I wanted to die at home. He had that conversation where he wanted to be buried, all of those things. So it was kind of like a disconnect almost. Between, okay, we're talking about somebody else's funeral, right? Like we're not talking about your funeral, that kind of thing. It was,
Yeah,
whew,
yeah.
people,
Because you don't want
people
to
have
talk
said, how
about
can,
stuff like that. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, it's like people say, well, how do you get down to the nuts and bolts of it? And I really do believe that, God gives you that supernatural strength to be able to do that. And if He doesn't give you that kind of strength or that kind, don't feel like, oh, well, that one woman said, if you know the Lord, you'll get that strength. That's not what I'm saying.
Right.
God moves in everybody's life individually. I believe that Christ died for all of us and each of us.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the way that I think about how God moves in people's lives. That he moves in all of us, but he also moves in each of us. So that was just my experience. So yeah, he was my love.
Yeah.
And it's been hard. These 6 months have been hard in ways that I didn't think they would be hard, and they've been easier in ways that I thought would not be easy. So everybody's grief journey is their grief journey.
Yeah. And that's exactly it. It's different for everybody. And there'll be those moments where, you have those laughing hard down. And I think, as you stated before, people kind of get stuck in just one way of grieving.
Right.
And there's more than one way. I mean, and I
Mhm.
realize that even the more because the hurt sometimes is there, you're
Mhm.
also healing. There's sometimes I can think about certain things and just fall out laughing. Sometimes
Mhm.
I'm walking through my house and I'll find myself quickly saying, "Friend," as if she's still right here.
Mhm.
I'm just like, "Friend."
Mhm.
And then there's moments where I may look at a picture and tears are falling, right?
Mhm.
But it's different. It's different depending on the ultimate side of it is being able to understand and know that grace is there.
Yes.
I'm always going to love that dementia with grace, because sometimes we just don't embrace the grace. And I'm a firm believer that God gives us grace for every place He allows us to be in, whether
Yes.
it's death, whether it's caring, no matter what it is, He gives us a measure of grace for those things that we endure. And when we recognize that grace and we learn how to lean into that grace, that's where we also find our strength. And so, you know, yes, it hurts. I was talking earlier, even with myself, you know, um, it's one thing to lose someone, and it's something totally different when you lose someone and you're caring for someone that you're also losing at the same time. As
Yes.
caregivers,
Yes.
you don't always get to break away. And I'm not even going to say always, you don't. When you're full time in this, you have to process what's happening in your life at
Mhm.
the same time while you're caring. And sometimes that's hard because you don't get to stop caring just because you're hurting from a loss.
Right.
I literally left the hospital um, after, my friend unexpectedly passes away, and I'm still in shock because in my mind that was not supposed to happen. But I left the
Right.
hospital. I went over to the house with her children for a little bit, but I still had to come home, and life had to keep going. And so, in the process, there's the tears falling, but then I have to suck it up because I still have to care for my mom, who she can't care for herself. And so
Right.
you have all of that going on, and it is a level of grief, when you're grieving somebody that's still here.
Yes.
You're
Yes.
as a caregiver, and that's the part that I want to be able to help us with, right? Because some people they're not dealing well with that part, because when you're in
Right.
this thing 24 hours a day, and and I can tell you that there's been so many, for whatever reason, over the holidays. I have a lot of video footage and pictures and stuff in my phone from
Hmm.
the beginning stages until now. And for whatever
Hmm.
reason, over the holidays, I started going through the video footage, and to see the progression from the
Hmm.
beginning to now,
Hmm.
that's a level of pain sometimes where it's just like, wow, right? And
Yes.
so, yes, there are days where I'm crying. I shared a video that I saw. I shared it last week, and I think that video explained what I feel daily so well with just words. And in that video, there was a son who was, it just, of course, it has the father sitting in a wheelchair, and the son is, scrubbing his back, giving him a bath. And
Hmm.
at the
Yes.
top of it, it says he doesn't know that I'm his son. And as he's scrubbing
Hmm.
his back, after a few moments, he leans his head down because he's sobbing on his dad's back. Because although dad doesn't remember that that's his son, he says, "But I remember he's my father." And you
Exactly.
see him just sobbing because there's a heaviness, and
Yes.
there's a
Yes.
hurt and a pain
Yes.
that
Yeah.
comes with watching your loved one. It's been a 10-year, almost 10-year for me, journey of watching my mom just daily lose something, daily
Mm.
lose it. So I'm at that point, and that's what I encourage people to do all the time is you got to strengthen the part that remains. But sometimes, even
Yes.
in strengthening what remains, your heart is aching. Sometimes it almost feels as if there's literal pain in my heart because
Yes.
of that hurt,
Yes.
where you feel like your
Like
physical
a
part.
true heartbreak. A
Yes,
true heartbreak.
exactly.
Exactly.
Yeah. And so to be able to deal with that, and so my whole goal in talking about this, having this conversation, is so that I know that there's other people that feel the same way. I know this from even being in the group, and I will be honest as well in saying I'm in there, but I'm not in there as much. When I come in a lot of times and I'm praying, right? But I carry stuff a lot. And sometimes when some of it gets a little heavy sometimes. And
Hmm.
so, I'm in there, and I make comments, when I make them. Sometimes I've been in there, sometimes I feel led to go in, sometimes 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. And at that particular
Hmm.
time, there's somebody who at that time is like in a desperate moment. And so I go in, I say a
Yes.
prayer,
Yes.
right? Because that's what it's
Hmm.
about. Because reality is we're human. As this said,
Absolutely.
you are human. You're not a rock. You have feelings, you have emotions, and
Hmm.
you feel it. When
Hmm.
there's a wife who's caring for her husband, and things are shifting. I spoke with someone recently, a couple months ago, who, this lady's in her 60s, and her husband has, dementia, and everything is shifted. And I'm talking to her, and I spent about a good 45 minutes talking with this lady, and I could feel her pain, and just talking
Yeah.
about how much has changed. I could feel her heart and her hurt, because you have a
Hmm.
husband who no longer recognizes you, who, when it's time to go to bed, he's saying, "I'm not getting to bed with you. I don't know you."
Yes.
you know?
Yes. And I laugh, but I mean, it happens. And then people are like, honey, we've been married for 40 years, but they just, it is a real slice of caregiving that happens. And sometimes they can laugh about it. And in fact, I had a woman tell me one time, she said, well, if you'll just let me sleep here one night, I'll get up in the morning. I'll be gone before your wife comes, and they kind of had a laugh about it, but it's a way through, but it's heartbreaking. It's hard. And what this is called, actually, Priscilla, for those that want to, have a term to Google, is ambiguous loss. Is of a the loss that is not a death, the loss of a spouse to divorce, a loss of, a person to dementia, a loss of a job or a career, or um a loss, like that's ambiguous loss, is what they call, like, when you, God forbid, lose a child to kidnapping or something, and you don't know the outcome and you don't get closure. That is ambiguous loss. So you can tell how deeply it can run in your life, talking about the physical pain of it all. It's all, I mean, there's one grief is not harder than the other. I don't want to diminish any grief, but it's different. And
Hmm.
there's ways through it. There's ways to approach it. And if folks don't have a counselor, I'm a counselor. I have a counselor. I see somebody every week through the phone. I don't have to go anywhere. I don't have to. They don't have to meet me anywhere. Through BetterHelp is the platform that I use, but I suggest it for all of my caregivers. So anybody listening here that is not on the group, and maybe had never heard of that, it's a really, really good platform
Yeah.
to talk to somebody about what's going on, because and it's not, well, I'm a Christian. I shouldn't need anybody but my preacher, or anybody but the Lord. That's
Not
I
reality.
think that no, it's not reality. It's not reality. And they can, in my life, even, I mean, like, I've been a social worker for 30 years. But there's things that they say that would never have occurred to me in my own life. We have nurses in the group that are like, I'm a nurse. I've been a nurse for 25 years and I don't know what to do about this X, Y, and Z,
Hmm.
because they can't see the forest for the trees. So, yeah, it's
And I'm big
grief.
on
Grief is
therapy
hard.
and Jesus. I'm big
That's
on that.
right.
I'm big on pray about it, because at the end of the day, absolutely, prayer is our source. God is our
Yes.
strength. He is where we find that joy. But then he also has
Yes.
set people in place that
Mm-hmm.
can help us. And so I too, I'm at every 2 weeks. I'm faithful. I am religiously faithful
Mm-hmm.
to going to therapy. And so, if you need, do it, because, you know, sometimes we just tend to not, especially caring. One of the things that you're deal with self-care, and I have made sure that in 2025 I am being
Mm-hmm.
extremely intentional about self-care, because I
Yes.
realized at some point last year, almost towards the latter part, that I was burning out. I felt
Mm-hmm.
like I was about to implode,
Mm-hmm.
because caring is a lot. When you're caring um, for anybody, whether it's dementia, whether, I mean, there's so much right now, so many things
Yeah.
that people, but if you don't get the help you need, and I realized, and I said it to my daughter, I know that the statistics show that sometimes, a lot of times, the caregivers will pass away before the person that they're caring for.
Yes. Yes.
And when I
In
felt
fact,
myself, go ahead.
well, I was just going to say, in fact, it's the caregiving stress is so profound in Alzheimer's and dementia, and other types of dementia caregiving. They actually study um, Alzheimer's and other dementia caregivers, because that gives them the that it's just a different result than they would if they, and because it's just caregiving is so difficult. And it's
Yeah.
so, and two, with dementia, like I've been a caregiver my entire life, for one way or another. Of course, I think people that come to this are natural caregivers, and so, but you know let's see, what was the point I was going to make. Mm, it left me. About the extent of caregiving. There's a reason why that they choose to study dementia caregivers, because it's a different animal. It really is, because you're dealing with somebody who is generally healthy in their bodies and sick in their minds, is
Yeah.
the way that I always explained it, on the unit. Because I was in a nursing home. We had the dementia folks in the same population as the other skilled nursing folks, until we did the memory care unit, one of the first in our area. And I had, and people would be like, why is she so, she's gone, but her body's there, her body's healthy, she's going to live forever, but her mind is has let her down. And so I don't know, I still don't know the reason for that.
You
But
know.
that is hard, because you're seeing the person physically there, and it looks like, when they speak, that words are going to come out that are, are, they're
Sensible.
cognizant, they're sensible, they can carry on a conversation. And then, like you say, your videos, and I think it's so important that you have those videos, but it is also a testament to, the conversation that's been lost, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. I'm
Your
actually
mother is
together.
beautiful. Your mother is gorgeous. Your whole family is. I mean, you and Kayla and everybody, y'all got some good genes. But but I think about, and I think I see that beautiful woman. I see her beauty still, and I know that you do too. But then when you show pictures, like your what's that history thing that Facebook does sometimes on this,
Your
5
memories.
years
Yeah.
ago, yeah,
Yeah.
7 years ago. Thank you. And I'll say, wow, wow,
Yeah.
she's just a beautiful lady. She still is beautiful. But you think that mouth is not going to, the words are not going to come from that mouth they did 5 years ago. It's
Yeah.
a whole, she's in a whole different place. So
And I'm
yeah.
putting together a video, actually a video book off of them is what I want to do. Because I want people to see, I mean, it, as you stated, I mean, it's a beast. That's what I say. It's a beast.
It
And like
is.
you said earlier, I mean, you have those moments where, I mean, you're happy, she's happy, and this is how dementia goes, right? Like this particular moment, she's happy. I love you. She tell me, I love you so much. And 5 minutes later, she's fighting. It's like
Yeah.
it's a
Yeah.
battle. And then 5 minutes after that, she's back to, you know, being calm. And 10 minutes after that, it's a fight. I think over the last few months, I have about 5 or 6 scars from where, because her fingernails, I can't get her to be still long enough for me to cut them, and so they're sharp, and I just
Yeah.
have scratches all over. And the emotional toll that takes on you,
Hmm.
with, and that's why I have to be adamant about, no, I have to take care of me. So I purposely scheduled
That's
some
right.
things, so that, because I plan to live long, I do. And
Yeah.
I just want to go, even as we deal with that, just considering you still manage this group, you have this group, you are still posting. And I know that a lot of it too is life and strength for you, to be able to do that. But even as you are moving forward, it's been 6 months, but when you consider it, what do you do to keep going when you feel like there's no way forward? Because I'm sure that there have been those moments where maybe you couldn't see yourself forward after having been, because when you talk about, that's the
Right.
thing about it, when you're talking about, when you mention Phil's name, your face lights up,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
means that I can tell through just your conversation, he was as they say, some kind of man. He was,
Yeah.
and so in those
Yeah.
moments when you don't feel like, I don't know if I'm gonna move, what do you do? How do you keep going in those moments?
Well, I think a lot of it is really inhabiting the grace that was given to us and knowing that you don't have to be any one way for any one person at any one time. Um, my folks on the group know my history. I also have a seizure disorder. I deal with seizures all of the time and have for all of these years. I have seizures every week, and I have, and that's why you can't see my big chair, but everything in my house is padded, and we would always have jokes about I have to live in a padded room, but I do. Um, and I don't force myself to do something or say something or be somewhere that I don't um that I don't want to do. I mean, and I have to depend on folks that say they love me to love me enough to let me be what I need to be in that moment. If I can't
That's
be in the
good.
group,
That's good.
I'll say something. I might, and I have a lot of, I have to give out a shout out to my moderators too. I have a lot of good moderators that, I still am the administrator of the group. There's things that only I can do. But for the most part, they can handle things if I'm not there. In fact, I jumped on before I connected with you, Priscilla, and I said, y'all, I'm going to be on a podcast and I'm going to talk about Phil's, my grief and Phil's death and all of that. And please, say a prayer for me that, that I can express the way God would have me be. Um, and if I need to take a break, I take a break. And if I want to be happy, if I want to come on and just say, y'all, I just can't believe I just found this thing. I'm going through our things, and I find things that that make me cry or make me laugh or give me a moment to pause. I mean, those things are just that's what gets me through the grace of it all. Um, and mercy goes hand in hand with grace. We know
Yeah.
that. And, so I know that God gives me mercy, um, to do the things that I want to do that I believe I've been called to do. Um, just like this, I told you a while ago, Priscilla, right before we jumped on, is that I just feel like God is platforming my grief because I'm not known as a grief speaker. I'm a dementia speaker. I speak in public and also, on through the Zoom and all, about dementia and the basics of dementia, about dementia, um, behaviors, all of that. I'm not a grief speaker, but I have been invited now. This is the third time to speak about my experience with grief. That's God. That's
Yeah.
not me. There's no way that's me because I've not said, "Oh, y'all, I can speak about grief. Please have me on." Not one time has an invitation come to me except now that I can have a authentic reaction. I lost my sister when I was 10 years old. She was 15. She had leukemia and died.
Mhm.
I lost my grandmother, who we talked about, when I did Kaylin's podcast about the youth
Mhm.
caregivers. I
Mhm.
said, yes, please let me come speak because I was a youth caregiver. My grandmother came to live with us, and I was part of her caregiving crew. I've lost, um, I've lost my mother when I was 27, my daddy when I was 30. I lost my career, which is an ambiguous loss. I had been divorced, which was an ambiguous loss. In fact, Phil and I, we almost dated in college. Let me just say this cute story. Priscilla, you watch our time because I'm not even watching.
I
But we we almost dated in college. He's 8 years older than me, and he had graduated from college. I was still in college, had just about to graduate, and I became a social worker at the same agency that his mother worked at. And so I was just like, I just needed somebody to walk with. I just wanted somebody to walk and talk with. And she's like, well, Phil has been looking for somebody to walk with. So y'all walk together. So we started walking every afternoon together. And let me tell you, that was in 93, and 1993. And he felt like he was too old, that I wouldn't give him any time. I wouldn't give him the time of day because he was 8 years older than me. And he was an old man at that point. And I thought he was the best looking man on two legs. And I thought he would never, he'll never see me like that. I'm everybody's friend. I have a twin brother too, and I was literally friends with all the boys. And, so, they never gave me the time of day. So I felt like Phil was going to be the same way. So we just walked and talked and had a nice friendship you know. So then I got married. Phil came to my first wedding. He
Oh
he
wow.
signed the book. Oh yeah, he signed the book. His mama signed right under him. They were at my wedding. So then I was married for 20 years and we divorced. And I finally, after about a year, made it Facebook official and I put on there that I was single. And Phil within a few days, what the kids call slid in my DMs.
That slid into your
He
DMs.
slid into my DMs, Priscilla, and he said, "Don't date nobody, don't marry nobody. I am putting my hat in the ring." And I
Okay.
said, "Well, come on, Phil Fitch, come on through." So anyway, we started talking, and then he asked me out, and so we started dating, and nobody could believe that. They just thought, "Oh, y'all are perfect for each other," and all of that. So that's another testament to what God ordains will be, and I
Yeah.
believe that. We missed our opportunity the first time, but we didn't the second time, but we were only married for 8 years. In fact, that he died on July the 2nd, and that next morning, July the 3rd, was our eighth wedding anniversary.
Oh wow.
And yeah, so um, it was difficult, and it's difficult because I didn't get to spend a lot of time with him. We felt like, okay, well, we might have not gotten it right before now, but we've got it right now, and we're going to spend the rest of our lives together. Um, he wasn't afraid of my seizures at all. He had no compunction about my seizures. He said, I'll take care of you in whatever way you come. I'll take care of you."
I love.
And I said the same thing back. So that's a different kind of, we weren't married for 45, 50 years, which is what I see a lot. Um, we were only married for 8, thought we would be married for the rest of our lives. And that's just not the way it happened. So there's just, there's complexities to grief and layers to grief that, I think sometimes you have to experience it to fully understand it. I can't look at somebody that's been married 50 years and say, just because I've lost a husband, I know how you feel.
Yeah.
Um, people are so, people want to do the right thing. I believe that, people have come up to me and said, it's for the best. He's in a better place. And of course, I know that, but also he can't be in a better place because he's not with me. That's the
And
way
I
it was
don't like
supposed
when
to be.
people say that, right? Like
And I really think that
they
people
mean
have,
well.
they mean well, they have good intentions, but but then, like his mother, for instance, his mother's still living. She's, 80, I think 80, 85 this year. And she lost a child. And she said, all these years, I thought that I knew how to respond to somebody that was a mother that had lost a child. And now I realize I didn't know. And I've told friends, I've lost a lot of people, and I was a nursing home social worker. I lost a lot of people,
Yeah.
just that I had just been friends with, and but it's you just you can't know until you've been there, and none of us are going to be in that 100% um,
Knowing.
equal experience.
Yeah.
Experience, yeah, yep. So people mean well. I know they do.
Yeah.
Um, And if I can come, like you said, what keeps me going? If I can come into the group, or I can make a speech somewhere that is going to give somebody an insight that maybe they didn't have, that maybe, you know, that it was me that was supposed to have that. I know God uses us. I don't want to say I'm a David or a Moses or anything like that. I'm not. Oh my gosh, so far from anything. But I'm me, and
Yeah,
God gave me a belly full of joy, as my daddy said. And so I'm to bring the message in that moment, moment by moment by moment, is how we live.
yeah,
Because things could change this afternoon. I mean, things could
that's
change
right.
tonight, and
And
so
and
we really do it have at the moments.
you keep yourself in a space where God can use you in that way.
And
Everybody wants to be used, but not necessarily how God wants to use them. But
exactly.
you
Oh
put
man, that'll
yourself
preach.
in a space,
Yeah,
where
that'll preach.
you're available,
Hmm.
and so it's easy to be in the situation, whether it's grief from physical loss or grief from you know being in the caregiving situation and the various things. It's all about one perspective, how you see it, how you
Hmm.
view it, and it's all about what you choose to do while you're there. You
Yeah.
can allow yourself to be overtaken by it, and you find
Hmm.
yourself in a place of sadness all the time, and pain all the time, and regret, and everything else that comes with that.
Hmm.
Or you
Hmm.
can take it and you can flip it and allow God to take what, in some instances, is the most painful place you've ever been, and
Yes.
allow Him to use that place for His glory. And
Hmm.
that's the important part with it. How can I take this place of pain and allow my place of pain in some ways to become somebody else's joy, somebody
Yes.
else's
Yes.
hope? Because
Hmm.
in essence, I think that's what purpose is all about.
Hmm.
Being able to not just think about you, but how can I use this to, as we're helping to educate people, we're helping
Hmm.
to inspire people, we're helping people to understand you're not by yourself. You can
Exactly.
have hope. You don't have to allow this pain to, or be buried in this pain, right? You can
Right.
laugh.
Right. Right. Yes, and you can laugh one minute and cry the next. I mean, that is exactly what, the moment by moment, that I have talked about forever in dementia caregiving, lends itself also to grief, because it's, you can be, you can mess up in one moment and think, oh, I could have handled that better. Don't wallow in it, because you're gonna have another moment, sister,
Yes, you
brother.
will.
You will
Today.
have another moment to get it right. And like you were saying, sometimes it's, 5 minutes ago, and then, hang on, by the time you get you some more sweet tea, you're gonna there'll be another moment for you to stand up, and get it right, whatever right means. I just, and my word, actually, I don't do resolutions, I do words
Yeah,
of the year. And my word of the year is momentum,
I love it.
which, doing a little bit at the time can get a big, get a big goal accomplished. But the root word of momentum is moment.
Yeah,
And so, it's moment by moment. And I think that gives you a lot, to me, that gives you a lot of grace. Because you could have lost your temper, and you could have hollered and carried on something foolish. But that was 5 minutes ago. So, go to the
yeah. What we're
bathroom,
gonna do right now is
calm
write the
down,
thing.
come back out, and swing again.
That's it.
That's it. And I think that gives a lot of people, like, okay, okay, I'm not doing it wrong. I'm not terrible. I'm human. I'm a human taking care of humans. I'm not
Exactly.
a rock. Like the post said, we're not a rock. So there's a lot of grace in that.
Yeah.
There really is. There really,
There's
really is.
there's gonna be moments. Take it from me. For those of you that are just getting started, those of you that are in the middle, I don't say this to make it like, but there are gonna be a lot of moments that you're gonna have to give yourself grace. I mean, and you can't.
Mhm.
What I've learned, and I'm thankful because I know that God has blessed me to have the level of patience and grace that I have
Yes.
with my mom, because I'm like, I just don't. I would be lying to say I never get upset. But in those moments when things happen, because my attitude is always, I can't do anything about it. Why am I going to get upset about something I can't do about something she has no idea that she's done? If she were
Right.
her, if her mind was, right, I don't want to say right, I use that loosely, but if she was
Yeah. Yeah.
cognizant,
Yeah.
she wouldn't
Mhm.
be doing that. But she can't help it. So why am
Mm.
I getting
Right.
upset for something that she doesn't have control over? So it's like, if
Right.
accidents happen, I've gotten up, gone to the room, and you clean it up. That's just
Mhm.
that's the bottom line of it. And I'm gonna get ready to
Mhm.
wrap this up. That just made me think about, we had an episode when my mom went into the hospital back in April of last year. She went to the hospital while I was out of town for work, and then when I got back, ended up taking it back. And then, there was one night, and I'm thankful because, I talk about Kaylin a lot. I'm grateful for the gift that he's placed within her. And, not to be graphic, but, my mom, she ended up having a major accident in the room, and Kaylin at the time was 18. And I don't know many 18-year-olds who, I mean, it just doesn't phase her. She's just, you know, she goes down because I'm watching on the camera and I'm like, hey, go see what's going on. And when she gets in the room, she's like, Mommy. So when I get there, and I'm like, oh, and Kaylin's first response was, Mommy, don't worry about it. I got it. I'll clean it up. And that was the
Oh.
first and last time, but it was like, okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Some people would have freaked out, but it's like, for what? And you learn that you give your person grace, you give yourself grace. Um, if nothing else, understand that you're gonna have those moments. You're gonna have moments when
Yes.
you're happy. You're gonna have moments when you're hurting. Um,
Mhm.
ultimately, the
And
good
it's all a part of healing.
exactly.
Exactly. All of that is healing.
Yep,
All of it is.
it's
The
healing.
tears you shed, are healing. If you, I mean, if you really want to see how God shows out, just Google about the different kinds of tears that you have. And they can look at different types of tears under the microscope, and they present in different ways. The tears from laughter, the tears from pain, the tears from, that you're happy and you've laughed until you cried. All of those tears have a different structure. That's God. That is
Yep,
God.
absolutely.
I mean, the ultimate creator. God does not waste. God does not waste our tears.
Yeah. Not
God does not
one
waste our
of
tears.
them gets
God does
wasted.
not waste. That's exactly right. I can't. There's a verse in Psalms. That's
It
something
talks
about
about
the
him collecting our tears.
tears in a jar. Uh huh.
Yeah,
Yep.
he
Yeah.
collects them.
It's
And that's the thing
They're
that
not
we have
wasted.
to look at, right? The fact
Mm-hmm.
that we serve a
Mm-hmm.
God who loves us that much that even when we're hurting, even when we're in that
Mm-hmm.
place of pain and those tears fall, they don't go to waste. He's collecting that, that
Right.
alone is like, you know, that's healing right there for me because you
Yeah,
understand
let me give you this other little anecdote here. We were in the hospital. Phil was in, he was in the hospital bed. I was in the chair beside him, and it was late one night, and we were so tired. And you that part where you get so tired you get delirious, and that's how we were. And we were singing hymns. We could not get a hymn right to save our lives, and we have been in church since the cradle roll. And and I've got it all on video. I've got it all on video. And so I go back and watch those a lot and say, good grief, we were trying. I'm a soprano and he would try to be the bass, but then he would be singing the wrong part. I said, that's the bass part. We got it all on video, all of it on video. Me telling him that was the wrong verse, or him telling me that was the wrong word, or you know,
Yeah.
whatever. Those videos will, um, those videos are healing to
Yeah.
me. To know that, we, just, I mean, there's just lots of ways to see the grace in things, and the fact that I had that we can even record on our phones now. You don't have to get out the big camcorder, or even before that, there was no way to catch people, their voices, or their, whatever. We've got a 4-year-old granddaughter, Etta, and she was Papa's girl, and she cries the night that we told her, that her parents told her, and then I came in the room. She said, "My heart is breaking." And I said, "I know your heart is breaking. My heart is breaking." And just last week, Emily said they were, she was almost asleep, and she said, "Mama," and she said, "What?" And she said, "Is Papa gonna be in heaven forever?" And she said, "Yeah, forever." She said, "I really want to see him." And so Emily pulled up the videos of all the videos that we've made over the years, and she was able to watch Papa. And what a blessing! What a
Yeah.
blessing that is. So um, we can count it all as joy.
That's it.
Count it all as joy.
That's what the word says. Count it
That's right.
all joy. And so
Hmm.
that's what we get to do. And so even as we wrap up, that's what we want you all to be encouraged with. Those of you that are caring, be encouraged in knowing that, you know, there is some joy. It
Hmm.
may not be visible to the eye or sometimes to the heart in the moment, but there is joy that you can find even in this process, whether or not you're caring for someone or you recently lost, your loved one, whatever it is okay to laugh. It's okay that you're hurting. It's okay
Hmm.
to have moments when you're not okay, as
Right.
long as you understand that even in the healing process, you're human. You're
And
not a
there's no right or wrong way to grieve, or
exactly.
caregive, or love. I
Yeah,
mean, there's that you just, if you come at it from a perspective of love, you're not going to get it wrong. You're
that's
not.
it.
It may
That's
feel wrong, it may look wrong, it may seem wrong, but it can't be wrong if you're approaching whatever you're, each moment, if you're approaching it in love,
that's
it'll
it.
happen. It'll work.
That is absolutely it. Listen, thank you again, Vicky, for this moment.
Thank
Thank you for
you.
sharing.
Thank you.
Sharing your heart. One of the greatest things about all of it is that even though it may have been cut short, you got the opportunity to love and to be loved by the love of your
Yes,
life. And so I'm
yes,
grateful
yes,
that you
yes.
came on to share, with us on tonight. And hey, you all, I want you to connect with Vicky. You can go to YouTube at Dementia with Grace or Facebook with Dementia with Grace Caregiver Support Group. Go on there, join the group. Again, if you're not a part of it, I strongly, strongly encourage you to subscribe, to like the channel, subscribe to the YouTube videos. There's some very helpful YouTube videos out there, some different behaviors that you may
Mhm.
encounter with your loved one with dementia. She has all of that out there, and as you can tell, some of them are comical. I love her Alabama accent, and as I stated earlier,
Thank you.
very authentic, very her. She loves God, she loves people, and I love her for all of that. And so
Thank you. And
go to
let
my
me say this too before we leave. You can contact me through the group. And I do one-on-one. So if you don't want to be in the group, if you don't want to be that exposed, even though it's private, as Priscilla said, if you just want to talk with me one-on-one, I offer a counseling package that, we can talk one time. We can talk every week. We can talk whatever. But my real phone number is on the group. So get on the group and find that, it's posted at the top, pinned at the top, I think is what it's called. So anyway, you get a hold of me that way too.
Yep, and she answers. She does answer the phone, and I promise you, you get. She's very educated. She knows exactly what she's talking about. So you're not just talking to somebody that just
Thank
started a
you.
group. She has the education and the experience behind it, and so she's certified to be able to
Mhm.
give the advice that she's given. I promise you, she's helping thousands of people. And so I
Thank
personally am telling you, connect. You can go on my
thank
website, www.priscillajjohnlouis.com, PRISCILLAJEAN-LOUIS.com. Go to resources. Her books are out there. All you have to do is go and click on the book. It takes you to Amazon. And I strongly encourage you, purchase those books, read those books if you're looking for strategies and ways and just even a better understanding of some of the behaviors that your loved ones may manifest that you don't clearly understand. Promise you it'll be helpful for you. Tune in again. We'll be on for another episode real soon. We'll get that information posted. Visit the social media pages, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, visit all the pages, but we'll get that. And I'll also post a link to the book on the social media. We look forward to you listening to the next episode. And as we always say, the mission of the podcast is to bring inspiration, education, resources, hope, and strength to caregivers so you can keep going, keep pushing, keep loving, and by all means, keep caring. All right. We love you. See you next time.